The manager of the grocery store had seen a great many things in his 22 years behind that counter. He had seen teenagers pocket candy bars with practiced nonchalance. He had seen grown men weep in the cereal aisle. He believed, in the way that people who have seen a great deal come to believe, that very little remained capable of stopping him entirely in his tracks. He was wrong. The boy was 9 years old, standing on the tips of his sneakers, old sneakers, the kind that had been white once and were now the color of a city sidewalk after rain, reaching into the discarded produce bin at the back of the store. The manager had been about to raise his voice when he noticed the wagon. It was a red wagon, the old-fashioned kind with a metal handle and wheels that squeaked on the concrete. The boy had parked it neatly beside the bin, and it was not empty. It contained day-old bread, slightly wilted carrots, 3 cans of chickpeas with dented lids, and a bunch of bananas, the edible ones carefully separated from those that had gone too far. The boy was not eating. He was sorting. His small hands moved with a quiet efficiency that did not belong to someone his age, placing each item into the wagon with a deliberateness that looked, in the slanted afternoon light, almost ceremonial. The manager stood in the doorway and did not say a single word. Samuel was 9 years old, and he had been paying attention his entire life. He lived with his grandmother, Nana Abena, in a 2-bedroom house at the eastern edge of a neighborhood that city planners had quietly set aside. The streets were not dangerous exactly. They were simply tired. The streetlights worked on alternate nights. The corner store had closed 2 years ago and been replaced by nothing. Nana Abena had raised Samuel since he was 4, after his mother left for a city 3 states away and his father left for reasons that were never explained in terms he could understand. She did not speak about either departure with bitterness. She spoke about them the way she spoke about rain, as conditions of the world toward which the only reasonable response was to continue. She was 71 years old, with arthritis in both hands and a faith in human beings that arthritis had failed, across 7 decades, to erode even slightly. She talked about their neighbors the way other people talked about family. Mr. and Mrs. Ferreira 3 doors down had taken to leaving their lights off in the evenings. Not because they went to bed early, but because the electricity bill had become the difference between keeping the heat on and not. Destiny across the street left for the distribution center at 6 in the morning, which meant her children sometimes arrived at school without breakfast because there had been no one awake to make it. Old Raymond at the end of the block had not left his house since October because his knee had gone and he had no one to drive him anywhere. Samuel listened to all of this with the actual orientation of his entire self toward what was being said, storing it, turning it over, considering what, if anything, could be done. He had no money, no car, no connections, no resources beyond his own 2 hands. A wagon he had found beside a neighbor's trash and repaired with electrical tape, and a stubbornness that Nana Abena recognized with a complicated private emotion as entirely her own. He started with the grocery store. He walked in one Tuesday after school and asked to speak to the manager. When Gerald appeared, a tired-looking man with reading glasses pushed up onto his forehead, Samuel explained clearly and without embarrassment that he knew the store threw away food each day, that there were people in the neighborhood who could use that food, and that he would like to collect it so it did not go to waste. Gerald looked at him for a long moment. "How old are you?" he said. "9, Samuel said. "But I'm responsible. You can give me a test if you want." Gerald did not give him a test. He said he would think about it. And Samuel came back the next Tuesday, and the Tuesday after that, until Gerald, quietly troubled by the amount the store discarded each week, said yes. The bakery took 4 visits. The Eritrean restaurant on the corner took 2. The Chinese takeaway 3 blocks over, owned by a small woman named Mrs. Lin, who had arrived in this neighborhood 15 years ago with nothing, took 1. Mrs. Lin looked at Samuel after he explained himself and said, in a voice that was not warm exactly, but something more durable than warmth, "Come Saturday, 6 o'clock. Not 7, 6. He came at 5:45. She gave him more than he could fit in the wagon. By the time Samuel was 10, he had a system. He kept a green spiral-bound notebook left over from the school supply room. In it, he wrote the name of every household on his route, what they needed, and what he had. From this, he produced each week a distribution that worked with a quiet precision that would have impressed someone who knew what to call it. He recruited 2 friends. Marcus, 11, had a bicycle with a basket. Yolanda, 10, had attached an old milk crate to her bike with bungee cords in a way that held mostly. On Tuesdays and Saturdays, they moved through the neighborhood. Samuel with the wagon, Marcus and Yolanda on the bikes, knocking on doors, leaving bags on steps, calling up to second-floor windows. They did not call it anything. Samuel, when people asked, said they were just making sure people had something, just making sure nothing was wasted. He said it in the tone of someone describing a routine task, because to him, that was exactly what it was. One evening, Nana Abena placed a bowl of soup in front of him and said, "Your grandfather would have loved you very much." He thought that if something needed doing and he could do it, the question of whether to do it had already been answered. Samuel considered this. "Isn't that just logical?" he said. Nana Abena smiled. The smile of someone who has lived long enough to know that the most important truths always seem obvious to children and mysterious to adults. "Yes," she said. "It is exactly that logical." The journalist who wrote about them was named Patricia. She heard about Samuel from the woman at the bakery, who described the arrangement so matter-of-factly that Patricia almost missed it entirely. She followed the route on a Saturday morning in January, half a block behind, watching the wagon move, through the cold air with its cargo of bread and produce packed in. Containers Mrs. Lynn now provided because she had calculated. They held more and kept things warmer. She watched Samuel knock on the Ferreira's door. She watched Mrs. Ferreira take the bag and say something that made Samuel laugh. She watched the lights come on inside, a single lamp in the front window, the kind of detail that only means something if you know it has been dark. "I think of it like a neighborhood as a system," Samuel told her at Nana Abena's kitchen table. "In any system, waste is inefficiency. Inefficiency is a problem that can be solved if someone is paying attention." "Where did you learn to think like that?" Patricia asked. Samuel shrugged. "Nana talks about the neighbors a lot. I just listened." By the time Samuel was 15, what he had built covered 43 households, operated on a weekly schedule refined through years of small adjustments, and included 6 young people with bikes, 3 adults who had begun contributing after being recipients themselves, a donated chest freezer in the Osei Addo garage, and relationships with 11 local food businesses built entirely through polite persistence. He had no website, no nonprofit registration, no mission statement. He had the green notebook, the 3rd one now, and the knowledge, accumulated across 6 years of showing up, of exactly what each person needed and how they preferred to receive it. Mrs. Ferreira liked the bag left on the step. Old Raymond preferred a knock and a brief conversation. Destiny's children liked when there was something sweet in with the vegetables. So Samuel always made sure, and a slightly overripe mango, a box of cereal close to its date, a sleeve of soft cookies from the bakery. He was not performing generosity. He was not building a legacy. He was doing what had seemed to him at 9 and still seemed to him at 15. Like the only logical response to the information he had. There were people who needed things. There were things going to waste. He was in the middle. The question of whether to act had been answered before he finished asking it. There is a photograph, taken by Patricia, that sat for 3 years on the Ferreira refrigerator held by a sunflower magnet. In it, Samuel is 10 years old. He stands beside the red wagon in front of a door just beginning to open. The light is low, the kind of winter afternoon light that makes everything look slightly golden and slightly sad. His jacket is too thin for the cold. His sneakers are the ones that had been white once. He is not looking at the camera. He is looking at the door. His expression is the expression of someone who has arrived where they were supposed to arrive, carrying what they were supposed to carry, and is simply, without drama or ceremony, ready to begin. Nana Abena kept the same photograph on her nightstand. She looked at it some mornings before she got up, in the quiet that belonged only to that hour, and thought about what it meant to raise a person who looked at a problem and saw, before anything else, the part of it they could address. Then she got up, and went to make breakfast, and Samuel came downstairs with his green notebook already in his hand, already thinking about what needed doing today and what he had and what he could carry.